everybody. Today we're going to start tiling a backsplash on this wall underneath my cabinets. So about 2 years ago, I went through a process of doing a major renovation to our house, and maybe I'll show more of that in a different video. But we're sitting here home under self-isolation, and I'm just looking at things that I can do without leaving the house. And I've been staring at that backsplash project for a very long time. I thought now would be a good idea and a good time to start that. I think I'll do a little bit of maybe how-to and a little bit of just doing it so you can watch. I'm not really sure how that's going to look yet, but we'll see. So for right now, take a look at the start of the process. Cleanup is first. So the tile I've chosen is this hexagonal green mosaic tile, and it's got a mixture of things. There's some glass tiles, there's some bits of granite, or maybe it's marble, and there's 3 or 4 different colors in here. And on the back, as many mosaic tiles come, there's that mesh that holds the whole thing together, so it's quite flexible. When you're doing a tile job like this, one of the first things you want to do is lay out your tiles to see where they fit on the wall, so that you don't end up with very, very small cuts on the corners or things that look bad like that. And on this wall, the inside corner over there is most visible. The one that's over here is blocked by the wall, can't be seen by most things. So I want to make sure that this corner over here is going to show the best possible bit of my tile. So I'm going to start my spacing over there. So the tile has 2 different aspects. There's one with a flat edge along here, and there's one where every edge is bumpy. And in order to reduce the cutting to a minimum, I want to keep this flat edge along the bottom. So something like this. And I think that'll just make the cuts that I have to do far fewer. Just trying to give approximate spacing. So my goal with that is just to see where the full tiles lay out and make sure there's no really big problems with really small cuts, as I mentioned before. So let's just take a really close look up and see what we're left with. So here we are, the tiles are all laid out, and you can see I've just kind of loosely placed them, kind of approximating where the gaps will be, so that I know how much space. It doesn't need to be perfect at this point. I've just laid them out, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 full tiles there. And with this gap that I've left, the approximate gap, you can kind of see that the end of this tile and the beginning of this one kind of overlaps a little bit, like a half maybe. But I can see I'm going to need about a tile and a half, maybe tile and 3/4 to make that cut look nice. And actually, upon rethinking, I've come up with a problem. I've figured out a problem. And this is why we lay things out. Let me show you what it is. So as I mentioned, I thought a tile and 3/4 was what I'm going to need. But then I forgot to consider the fact that at the other end, this one doesn't have a flush edge to butt up against the wall either. So I'm going to be cutting off a bit of this so that these tiles can sit flush against the wall. That means that this whole layout will be shifting that way by a 1/2 inch or so. Which when we come back here, creates a problem for me. So I'm going to take this one tile here, and I'm going to cover it over, approximately it'll be fine today, the cutoff that I'll be making of the tiles that I was planning on cutting off. So that would look something like that. I'd be moving it over about that much, and you can see there's a little bit of an overlap there. Just what I would cut off from here, that line here is what I'd cut off. So that would be approximating that distance. Now when I come back to this wall level tile, you can see currently it is sitting at 2 full tiles. And I still have to cut this off. Which means that after I cut off this flush edge, there will be the smallest of slivers left. And that doesn't make for a nice looking tile. A small little bit like that up against the wall doesn't look very good. So how do I solve that? Well, I have to come back to the very beginning. And instead of just cutting off a small little bit, I'm going to have to come fuller into the tile and make the cut here somewhere in the middle of this tile, pushing the whole thing that way and leaving my last tiles over there thicker. Okay, so I can see that I've got my overlap here just like I moved it out before, and I've gone and cut off 2 strips from the main tile. And if I slide that in place, I'm starting to hone in on my spacing now. You can see what's left between the wall and the counter is a section of tile that's this big. Now, that's pretty small, but it sure is better than what I had it spaced at before on our very first try, which looks a lot like this. And nobody wants to see a very small piece of glass in there. That will look very bad. So pulling the whole thing this way gives me a bigger piece to work with, and that's still small, but what can you do? On the other side, I'll be cutting fully half of this tile away. I could even go a little bit more to try and echo the cut on the other side so that the tiles are perfectly spaced in the middle. That's the ideal. So I'm starting to hone in on a little bit more of a fine measurement to make my very first cuts for layout. I'll show you what I mean. So each one of these little hexagons is 2 inches in width. And I think right over here I have about an inch reveal. So I'd like to keep that about the same. I'd like to have about an inch reveal here and an inch reveal over there, showing me about a half a tile. So I'm going to make my marks and measure out cuts down this first row of tile at an inch. Okay, so there's that line marked out halfway through that tile. Now I'm going to cut a line. I'm going to cut this part of the tile off and keep the flat end to go against the wall. But as I mentioned, these are glass tiles. And these ones here, I think it's marble, so I'm going to call them marble from now on. Marble and stones, they're different materials, so they're going to cut differently. Marble or ceramic or porcelain, I would happily run it through a wet saw, but glass is unpredictable in wet saws. And so I'm going to have to cut these tiles individually, and let me show you how you do that. You use a possibility of 3 tools, or a combination of 3 tools. First of all, I'm going to use this diamond blade scoring knife to run a line across the tile. And then I'm going to use a snapper. It's best if we look this way. It has this
flange on the other side here to press against both sides of your cuts, and you squeeze them together like pliers, and the tile snaps right in the middle on the scored line. Now this one also has a diamond wheel on it, but I've always found that this particular tool isn't as sharp as my handheld one, so I use that one. And then if there are any weird edges that pop up, I have a pair of nippers, and I've had really bad luck with glass, but they still do work on occasion. So they're best for ceramic and porcelain, but they work on glass. So let's go get that together and cut those. So I'm going to use this trowel to be my straight edge. I'm going to take my knife, and I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but there's a grinding sound when you make a cut. Hopefully that shows up. It just makes a little score on the glass. Actually, I don't want to use the trowel. Now, I just made a cut here, and well, you can see that, and it is not perfectly on my line. And that's fine. It totally is okay, because that corner is going to be hidden by caulking anyways. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's going to be a trouble to snap that one with my snapping tool, but the actual cut itself doesn't need to be super perfect. Yeah, this marble sounds different because it's not the same as glass. It just cuts different. It snaps so much easier. Okay, there we are. I've made my scores, and there's the line. Now it's time to use my snapping tool. I'm going to take it and put these two pieces here on the same side as the score line so that they're pushing down. And this bottom piece will actually rest on the score line on the underside, and the whole thing will just snap in half. And it works really, really well. Let me just line up my first one here. There we are. There's the first one. See, it's snapped off in a fairly clean line as well. All right, let me just do the rest of these and you can see. Okay, so here they are. They're all cut apart now, and I can go ahead and snap them. Just a little bit of care will be fine. Even the glass broke really, really well. Another marble one. They break so easy, it's nice. The last one's a little bit crazier. Doesn't take much effort. That score line is good. Okay, there they are. And on the back side they've got that mesh. So I'm going to cut that away right now. And there we are. They're all cut and they're all separate, but they're laid in place. And so you can see now that once these are on the wall, this will be a nice flush and smooth line to butt up against the corner. And that's really where we're going to start. So here we are with the cut tiles up against the wall, and I've followed through and laid out all the spacing again through the whole thing. And let's look at what we have on the other side. So you can see that there's still a smallish cut, and it's smaller than what you see on the other side, but that's okay because the other side gets covered by the next tiling that butts up, so the spacing will be about the same. And now I can cut these small pieces from the offcuts of the last one, hopefully. And there we have it. The last row is cut. So my wall is now covered from end to end in tiles. The layout is done, and I can start putting this first row up on the wall. Well, there we are. That's the layout done, at least half the layout. If you enjoyed what you saw and you want to check out more, please come back for the second episode where we start to adhere the tiles to the wall. And of course, please press the subscribe button so you can watch the rest of our great progress. Thanks. Bye.